Chapter 7 The Water-Drops by Charles Dickens. A Fairy Tale. The suitors of Sura, and the young lady, with a reference to her papa. Fr in the west there is a land mountainous, and bright of hue, wherein the rivers run with liquid light. The soil is all of yellow gold, the grass and foliage are of resplendent crimson, where the atmosphere is partly of a soft green tint, and partly azure. Sometimes on summer evenings we see this land, and then, because our ignorance must refer all things that we see to something that we know, we say it is a mass of clouds made beautiful by sunset colors. We account for it by principles of meteorology. The fact has been omitted from the works of Keats or Daniel, but notwithstanding this neglect, it is well known in many nurseries that the bright land we speak of is a world inhabited by fairies. Few among fairies take more interest in man's affairs than the good cloud country people. This truth is established by the story I am now about to tell. Not long ago there were great revels held one evening in the palace of King Cumulus, the monarch of the western country. Sura, the daughter of the king, was to elect her future husband from a multitude of suitors. Sura was a maiden delicate and pure, with a skin white as unfallen snow. But colder than the snow her heart had seemed to all who sought for her affections. When Sura floated gracefully and slowly through her father's hall, many a little cloud would start up presently to tread where she had trodden. The winds also pursued her, and even men looked up admiringly whenever she stepped forth into their sky. To be sure, they called her mackerel and cat's tail, just as they call her father ball of cotton, for the race of man is a coarse race, and calling bad names appears to be a great part of its business here below. Before the revels were concluded, the king ordered a quiet little wind to run among the guests, and bid them all come close to him and to his daughter. Then he spoke to them as follows. "Worthy friends, there are among you many suitors to my daughter Sura, who is pledged this evening to choose a husband. She bids me tell you that she loves you all. But since it is desirable that this our royal house be strengthened by a fit alliance with some foreign power, she has resolved to take as husband one of those guests who have come hither from the principality of Nimbus. Now Nimbus is that country not seldom visible from some parts of our earth, which we have called the rain cloud. The subjects of the prince of Nimbus, Cumulus continued, are a dark race, it is true, but they are famed for their beneficence." Two winds, at this point, raised between themselves a great disturbance, so that there arose a universal cry that somebody should turn them out. With much trouble they were driven out from the assembly. Thereupon, quite mad with jealousy and disappointment, they went howling off to sea, where they played pool billiards with a fleet of ships, and so forgot their sorrow. King Cumulus resumed his speech, and said that he was addressing himself, now, especially to those of his good friends who came from Nimbus. "Tonight, let them retire to rest, and early the next morning let each of them go down to earth. Whichever of them should be found on their return to have been engaged below in the most useful service to the race of man, that son of Nimbus should be Sura's husband." Cumulus, having said this, put a white nightcap on his head, which was the signal for a general retirement. The golden ground of his dominions was covered for the night, as well as the crimson trees, with cotton. So the whole kingdom was put properly to bed. Late in the night the moon got up, and threw over King Cumulus a silver counterpane. The Adventures of Nebulus and Nubis. The suitors of the Princess Sura, who returned to Nimbus, were afoot quite early the next morning, and petitioned their good-natured prince to waft them over London. They had agreed among themselves that by descending there, where men were densely congregated, they should have a greater chance of doing service to the human race. Therefore the rain cloud floated over the great city of the world, and as it passed at sundry points, the suitors came down upon raindrops to perform their destined labor. Where each might happen to alight depended almost wholly upon accident, so that their adventures were but little better than a lottery for Sura's hand. One, who had been the most magniloquent among them all, fell with his pride upon the patched umbrella of an early breakfast woman, and from thence was shaken off into a puddle. He was splashed up presently, mingled with soil, upon the corduroys of a laborer, who stopped for breakfast on his way to work. From thence, evaporating, he returned crestfallen to the land of clouds. Among the suitors there were two kind-hearted fairies, Nebulus and Nubis, closely bound by friendship to each other. While they were in conversation, Nebulous, who suddenly observed that they were passing over some unhappy region, dropped with a hope that he might bless it. Nubis passed on and presently alighted on the surface of the Thames. The district which had wounded the kind heart of Nebulous was in a part of Bermondsey, called Jacob's Island. The ferry fell into a ditch. Out of this, however, he was taken by a woman who carried him to her own home, among other ditch water, within a pail. Nebulous abandoned himself to complete despair, for what claim could he now establish on the hand of Sura? The miserable plight of the poor fairy we may gather from a description given by a son of man of the sad place to which he had descended. In this island may be seen, at any time of the day, women dipping water, with pails attached by ropes to the backs of the houses, from a foul-fetid ditch, its banks coated with a compound of mud and filth, and strewed with offal and carrion. The water to be used for every purpose, culinary ones not excepted. Although close to the place whence it is drawn, filth and refuse of various kinds are plentifully showered into it from the outhouses of the wooden houses overhanging its current, or rather slow and sluggish stream, their posts or supporters rotten, decayed, and in many instances broken, and the filth dropping into the water, to be seen by any passer-by. During the summer, crowds of boys bathe in the putrid ditches, where they must come in contact with abominations highly injurious.